I would like to welcome you all to a Cosmic Cuppa with Jude. And tonight we have Sharron Martin back with us again. Sharron, how are you and what have you been up to lately?
Well, I am really good, except for the fact that I am often feeling very tired. And I think this is probably the experience of a lot of humanity at the moment. We're shifting into, well, we're going through a huge transformation. And that includes having all of our molecules increase in spin, and we're shifting into crystalline, and all of that takes a lot of energy.
Definitely. That's really interesting. You're saying we're shifting into crystalline.
Mm.
So can you talk a little bit about how that affects our bodies
Mhm.
as we transition this time?
Yes. So I am shown and have been for some time, but now it's happening in the physical. So it's almost as though we've come down the dimensional layers to now be working in the physical, things that perhaps we saw and were shown maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and probably in that self-inquiry of, well, is this true and is this ever going to happen? But now it is that we're having this experience in the actual physical. So we're shifting from being carbon based to being crystalline based. And I kind of feel that we can say that in a number of ways. So we're coming into being more crystalline in our molecular structure. But to me, it also intersects with our coming into the Christed consciousness, the Christed light, the golden divine liquid light that's been, that's coming in and is in our spine and bringing us into that. So I think we can use the word Christ and we can use the word Christ as in
Yes.
Kryst. But that's my understanding. We're coming in, we're shifting our molecular structure from carbon to crystalline. And so this is our process. We're receiving information, light, and codes from the sun. A lot of relationship to the diamond codes, the emerald tablets, the emerald codes sitting all within that. And so our bodies have been going through this ongoing transformation through the molecular system, really. We've had various foci throughout the last couple of years, and right now we've been through a massive nerve ending system upgrade. We've gone through a lot of brain upgrades as well, and we're tired. Our little human bodies are tired because it uses a lot of energy to be in this. We could call it all those trans words, really. Kind of makes me laugh how the language crosses over. But we're in transmigration, we're in transmorphing, we are the transducers. And so all of this is the role that we're having as humans here on the planet, this being the pillar of light, if you like, between the heavens and the earth, as well as being our own central vertical pillar, our own toroidal field, intersecting with some of our smaller internal torus, our heart torus, our physical torus, our earth torus. So there's all these
That's beautifully
intersecting
said.
kind of lines so that we can come into this higher crystalline. We're having our DNA reactivated back to 12 strands or beyond, but let's talk about the sort of normal, I guess the normal range is that many will be returning to 12 strands of DNA, and there'll be people who, get back to 48 strands and things like that. But yeah, the bottom line, I think, is that we're coming back to being 12 strands of DNA as humanity. And we're coming into, this is the thing that's really exciting. So we're coming into what Gaia calls enlivening. And so that's all of this. It's like everything is having its own activation. That we're watching. Oh, the other night, on the last day of March, I was guided to go outside, and I'm not kidding, the darkness in the sky was moving. It was as though I recorded it as well, and I just found the video tonight, and I thought, oh yeah, you can actually see it. So there's this darkness and there's these stars, but the darkness is moving. So
Wow.
there's that aspect. And then we're coming into our miracles, the things that all of you are amazing at, the things that are our hidden higher level gifts. That's what we are in return to. And so all of that's very exciting. We're coming into being eternal beings. And I'm not saying that's happening tomorrow, but we're on this
Why not?
yeah, well, maybe it will for some people, but we're on this kind of
Yeah, it is a
trajectory
journey.
back to being eternal, into this crystalline aspect, into our cellular rememberings, and into this whole idea of having higher access to our miracles and our codings. So we'll each have these gifts returned. Yeah.
Which is brilliant when you think about the potential of where we're going if we so choose to, which is very exciting. What I should probably do before we go any further is maybe just read out a little bit of your bio. I got a bit excited and carried away.
Oh no, you don't need to. You don't need to read that out.
Don't need to
No,
do that, my lovely.
no.
All right, then we'll just have a cuppa.
Yeah.
So I hope everyone's got their cuppas at the ready. Would you mind speaking about your role of opening doors into dimensional realms as a bridge to worlds? It's quite exciting.
Yeah, well, I don't actually, in a way, I have to tell you that I operate from quite a lot of naivety. So, there are things that I can do and I don't actually know how. So I feel that I actually astral travel to other places, and I certainly astral travel into the center of the earth, but I don't really know how I do that. So I think that I do operate from a degree of naivety, and so through the portals, well, that reminds me of the we talked about this idea that we might speak of the dragons. So I once had, in meditation, I had this huge dragon just show up in my face. And when I'm in that upper space, I'm not scared of anything. So I don't know whether you have those experiences, but I have no fear when I'm in that higher dimensional space. So this huge dragon, like bigger than a multi-story building, turned up and right in front of me, and I looked at it and I said, "Oh, why are you here? Oh, who are you? Who are you?" And he gave me his name, and I said, "Well, why are you here?" And he said, "Because I will take you through the timelines. When Earth is in an emergency and you go to attend to the emergency, I know the shortcuts through the dimensional spaces, the curtains, the dimensional curtains, and the timelines." And so in a way, that's how I knew I did it, because I didn't really have an understanding of that until the dragon told me.
That is beautiful. What an amazing realization. And interestingly, my next question is, would you please tell us about the celestial dragons of earth, air, fire, and water?
Yes.
What is their role, and how do they best interrelate with us?
Well, I think first of all, I'll speak about my perspective on them, which is not the same as many people. I believe that we have been dragon riders. I believe that we each have a connection to the dragons, but some people believe that we come from the dragon. But that's not my belief. I might be shown to be incorrect, but my belief is that we have been dragon riders, that the dragons are part of the world of the fourth dimensional elementals, and that they hold space, and they come as water dragons, as earth dragons, as air dragons, and as fire dragons, and that they start you know, if you think about the dragonfly, and it's really interesting because there was a dragonfly in my hallway just a few minutes ago, but that's really like the smallest version of those, up to this dragon that showed up for me, which is the biggest dragon that I've ever seen. And he introduced himself and said his name was Titan. And he looks like he's made of titanium, that refractive rainbow light. So they, if you like, are the fourth dimensional elemental beings, and they definitely hold dominion over the realms in some way. I think Avatar probably did quite a decent job of introducing this notion. They've been in our past, they've been in our ancient history, they've been a part of Avalon, they've been a part of other historical places, and so I guess they come in through our folklore in that regard. And interestingly, maybe I think in March I had the series of things that happened, and the dragons were a part of that as well. So in March I got shown that the starlight was coming in. It was like this cascading light coming down to the planet, and that was the introduction of a whole set of new codes, and that it was coming down into the waters and into the waters of consciousness. And the cetacean creatures, whales in particular, were sounding it out through the waters. And then that was risen to the air, and the giant birds of old, I don't know if we have birds that big now, but the bigger birds that some of us have been, the bird men, etc., they were sounding it through the air, and the dragons were using their wings to move it through. So that was one little thing that happened with the dragons coming in, moving it through the air so that we can receive it through, you know, the waters of consciousness. They come in through the rain, through the clouds, through the waterfalls, the rivers, the lakes, and the oceans. And so there's this, and they're internal as well. So we have waters internal of the planet as well as on the surface. So the dragons were having a role in that. So they show up to me as fourth dimensional beings. They hold a lot of ancient codes. I have to tell you, I believe they are incredibly wise. I once, when I first started working with Gaia and I went into the center of the earth, I got shown myself riding a dragon, and there were hundreds of dragons around me, and that was my first experience of seeing the dragons in that kind of way. And I asked, what's that about? And the sounding came through from the dragons. It was very deep and resonant, and I asked them what it was about, and they were paying tribute to me. And I said, well, why would you? And they said, because you saved our territory, you rescued us from our demise at some point. I don't know where and when, but they were calling me the Queen of the Dragons, which was bizarre to me. But that was what they told me, that I had somehow held space for a dominion that was theirs, and that meant that their species could continue, and they were the inner earth air dragons. That's how they showed up. So I think we have these weavings of stories that each of us have had experiences in the various dimensions, the various eras, and that as we move along, a lot more of this will come back into our, I guess, our rememberings, our memory. So they hold that very powerful intelligence to be moving through the dimensional fields, the timelines. And the dragon lines is a word from a particular culture that links into the grid lines. So
Oh,
so the grid lines,
yes,
the dragon lines, the song lines, the
yes, of course.
yeah, the
It's all being
line
woven
grids.
in your story. Yes, it
Yes,
makes
yes,
sense.
yes. So each culture calls them by a particular name. And of course, the dragons, they really link in very strongly to the era or the epoch of Camelot.
Yes.
And so many of you will have had lifetimes as being a part of Avalon or Camelot, the Arthurian, I call them the Arthurian time. So the dragons were very present in that kind of archetypal era.
It kind of puts St. George and the Dragon in a whole different light, doesn't it, Sharon?
Yeah,
Because
it really
initially I
does.
thought the dragon that was being slayed were the Sika or the Draco. But
Oh,
in actual
yes.
fact, it may have been these beautiful ethereal dragons that the Christians were murdering because they wanted the kudos.
Yeah, it's so hard to know, isn't it? The way
Mm,
in which our history has been um, rearranged.
yes.
And what I it's interesting that one of the things that Gaia said to me early on when there was and there it still is now, there's all this, to me it's distraction, but there's all of this online debate, isn't there? Are we a flat earther or are we a spherical earth? And I remember when I spoke to Gaia about that a number of years ago, she responded like an old school mom, really. And she said, humanity would be a lot better focusing on developing their consciousness rather than arguing, arguing over whether the earth is flat or spherical. And so for me, when I am off planet, I see it as spherical, but I'm open to the debate around it. I can see that there are various perspectives on it, and really, I don't care. But what I do know is that it's used as a great time-consuming debate. It creates division, and that has, you can see that. We can all see that. Those of us who are conscious, we can see that this debate, the separation, the intrusion of whether something is right or wrong or in or out, has been a part of keeping us separate
Mm,
and keeping us, don't focus on the important things, focus on that. And there's so much righteousness in people who,
yes.
say the earth is flat. And I can prove it. And then the people who say, no, that's nonsense. And there's so much sort of, what would you call it? Well, I guess speaking down to one another because of an
Mhm.
opinion and because of a perspective. So I
Yes.
think that that sits in in there as part of the debate. But yeah, this all of the eras, the epochs, they hold various stories about the dragons and where they come from and where they fit. And here in New Zealand, of course, we have our version, which is the Taniwha. And I know that uh, there's like the Taniwha, for me anyway, the Taniwha have shown up. So I think when I first went to Lake Rotopunamu, so I don't know if you know of that lake, but it's down by National Park. It's said to be the heart lake of Aotearoa. And to me, when I was there, the Taniwha showed up and rose up out of the lake, and I spoke to the Taniwha. And what I got from that Taniwha was that lake linked to Lake Titicaca
Wow.
in South America.
Oh, wow.
So it's, there's all of these weavings. And for me, when I've gone into the inner earth, there's these beautiful emerald oceans, and all of that links in through there. And when I went to Mount Shasta in Arizona, every waterway we went to, the Taniwha showed up for me, or the dragon. And I remember, I can't think what the lake was, but we were somewhere, and I said, oh, I can see the dragon, the Taniwha, or the dragon was lying on its back on the lake. And I said to some of the others, oh, can you see that? And they said no. And they said, tell us about it. So I was describing it, and I said, I don't know whether it's female or male. And as I'm saying that, the dragon pops this little baby up on lies on its back and pops this baby up on its belly. So there was some kind of conversation going on between me and that dragon. But yeah, that's kind of I just think it's about when we get past the fear of it, that they have a lot of intelligence, they have a lot of ancient knowledge and wisdom, and that each of us can connect to them. There's a range of them. They're here to assist us. They're here to bring in the ancient codes. They're here to help us move through the dimensional spaces. They have, I believe, been battling for our lives, really. You know, they've been here battling for us as humanity to maintain our light. I mean, we really have been in the demise of dropping into the second dimension, and a lot of us have come to be a part of this arising, this dimensional shift, this awakening for humanity. And I believe that the dragons have had a big role to play in
It's
that.
so exciting, isn't it?
Yeah,
And when you
really
think
is.
it's not just the dragons, you look at all of the fourth dimensional and higher realms. We've got the fairies, we've got the unicorns,
Yeah.
we've got the dwarves, we've got the devas of place, what we would call the manu of place. We've got so many beings to meet and liaise with,
Yeah.
dialogue with.
Yes. And the Pegasus. And
Yes,
all of the devas of all of, so if you are tuned to a lot of crystal pieces, you'll find that there's a deva in the crystal, that lives in the crystal, that can tell you about the crystal. Yeah, so we've got
yes.
all of, and they're fourth dimensional, and really, you know, they will rise with us, so they won't be fourth dimensional for very long. But what Gaia told me is that they are in this place with us, feeling safer now. So they are more willing to be seen, and more of us are developing the wherewithal to be able to see them, to be able to have conversations with them. And it's
That's
just
fantastic.
a pretty exciting series of conversations that we can be having. But yeah, today I was showing that the crystal, the internal crystal, like I guess you could see it as the crystalline veins, that those are being realigned. It's like we've had the grid lines have been rearranged, and now we're in the finer veins that are, and it's the devas, it's the crystal devas that are doing that. So they're being sort of re-energized, realigned, brought into this higher way of being in the internal, because a lot of our earth, for those of you who can do that, who can, you know, astral travel and take yourselves down into the inner earth, and if you can't, let me tell you, it looks a lot like going into an internal space where there are rocks and crevices and caves and giant crystal geodes, and then airspace as well. And sometimes there are craft, like spacecraft in there. And Shambhala sits, in my view, Shambhala sits in there, and a couple of other internal cities, which I always forget the name of. But there's one that's very golden, and Shambhala sits at the back of that. Yeah, it's terrible how I forget what they're called.
It's all
And
right.
then another one that's more white and blue sort of crystal. And I might not have been to all of the places that are in there, but they sit in there, and there's this kind of, there's this cavernous space when we drop through the crust of the earth, and head on down to the center of the earth. There are there's some sort of solid walls, and there's some openings, and the idea that the internal is very much like the external holds true in my experience.
Wow. Wow, wow, and wow. Have you been to the halls of Amenti inside the earth?
I haven't. No, I go to the to those in the ninth dimension. And
Ah,
so I feel that I go off planet into the ninth dimension to access those.
interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Would
And
you,
so no, go on.
sorry, would
No.
you like to speak about the fire codes and letters that are being released for activation and upgrades of our 12 strands of DNA and mastery
Yes.
codes of the original blueprint and what that brings online for those that can hold these frequencies? Bit of a mouthful,
Yes.
but I know you know what I mean.
Yes, I do. So the fire codes now, they showed up for me. I have to apologize because I am really not very attached to time and days anymore. So I'm always having to double check myself what day it is, what time it is. But I think they showed up either, well, this year anyway. So they showed up in my sort of daily writings that the fire codes were coming in I don't know, February maybe or March. And so they show up to me as like letters. And yeah, I think that's the, so if you think of letters and symbols, and I was watching them come in through the ethers. And so this is our connection to, I guess, our ancient coding. And to me, they link into the emerald codes, the emerald tablets. They link into our, maybe our genetic coding, and the fact that we've had interference, that we've had our DNA snipped, and that now we're returning. So it's like, if you think about, I guess, if you think about the Earth having dropped down in frequency into a different place in the galaxy, and now we're rising back up. And as we rise back up, it gives us access to things, to codes, to elements, to aspects, as we rise. And that these were, because I think that we've had so much interference. So I think if you went back to a time when you were in Atlantis, for example, when you were Atlantean, or it's hard to let's see, well, let's say Atlantean. And yet, in saying that, I want to say that there's huge information coming through about our Lemurian past at the moment. It's like the whole Lemurian aspect, especially here in New Zealand, because right through from here all the way through to Hawaii, we have this big connection to the Lemurian times. But yeah, the fire codes, they are really like the I want to sort of call them birthing, but I might not be right with that, but like the birthing letters. So if you think about yourself as this higher dimensional being who might be able to like point your finger and make something happen, point your finger and magic up something, or like if you have this experience of moving in and out of past lives and stuff, I've seen a whole lot of things that we used to do or used to be able to do that I believe we will be able to do again, like various kind of mm, craft for teleporting, for example. Um, and I believe that the fire codes are to do with these ancient codes held in some aspect of our cellular way of, or our cellular being, whether they are connected in, and I believe that they are, but I'm really a, what am I? What am I? I'm really an interdimensional traveler with not very much of a science brain. And so I speak from what I see and what I get given. And I think that I have really learned to sit, because I used to have in it, well, yes, I guess I could say this, without diminishing myself. I used to have this incredibly academic mind. That's my background. And I've had to learn to undo that academic mind, and I've had to learn to just be okay with just kind of being in the wash of things. But I believe that these ancient codes are part of our coding, our memory, our DNA, our internal cellular activation for our gifts, our higher coding, our higher psychic visions, and that we have been, many of us, if we've been in Atlantis, one of the memories I have of being in Atlantis is juggling the creation balls. I was like this with them, and I knew that's what they were, and playing with the creation balls with a couple of other people. And so whether that's a metaphor for it or an actuality, I don't know. And I don't get caught up with that, because I tell you, I get given so much information, and I can't possibly go into the worry of getting all the details of it, to be honest.
What is
So
the
I think that
feeling around the creation balls? Just to stop you for a minute, did you feel you were creating worlds or dimensions or ideologies? What was your feeling around that?
people, beings, we were creating beings from life.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I think that could have become wayward as well, because that was in Atlantis, and in
Which it
Atlantis
did.
we
Yes.
got a bit caught up with our power. We lost track because we became very well, mentally minded with our abilities, and so we became very, very much in that power mongering. Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
Throw me another question then.
We've just been through a major solar eclipse
Oh, yes.
with 7 planets also in alignment, I believe. Could you talk about this major shift the solar system and planets have moved through, and the deeper understanding of this progression from dark to light, and maybe just anything else that you feel is appropriate with your understanding?
Sure. So
Thank you.
my astrological knowledge would fit into the minuscule, but I have, and I'm interested in it, but what I have recognized is that I bring through information, and then the astrology confirms it. So that's quite useful for me. And I have some people who follow me who have said to me, would you like me to send you the astrology? And I say no, because if I have that could infiltrate my channeling. So I prefer to know it after I've channeled. So one of the things that's been very strongly in the ethers, or the mind, the consciousness, is actually the number 7. There's just so many things to do with the number 7. So, we have the 7 sisters that links to the Pleiadians. The 7th ray is the gold and silver violet ray. The 7th is the 7 is the number of miracles and magic. Merlin, he came to the earth working on that 7th ray. Saint Germain, he came, and he's one of the Kuhan of the 7th ray. And so this is where we're moving to, and back to this miracles and magic, the manifestation. So all to do with the 7. And then the 7th heaven, right? The 7th dimension. All of these things are sitting around for us to kind of, I guess, reconnect with. Go back to your question again, Jude.
So how is that affecting the changes with the eclipse that we are having now going through, and the deeper understanding of all of this?
Yeah, so what I understand about it is that so in 2012, for example, we had some emissions from the sun. Those emissions from the sun, they really come to reactivate us at a cellular level. And so at that point, we were really only at that introductory entry level to receive that. And what Gaia has spoken about is that from that time we've gone through what she has called tempering. So we've received more of these emissions from the sun. They've become stronger and they've become more regular. So this is essential fitness really that we've been going through, and this is why it's, in a way, a lot of light workers, I want to say, got a little bit lost by forgetting that they were in the physical. And so a lot of us perhaps forgot that we weren't leaving the physical, that we were transmuting the physical, that we were transforming ourselves in this physical way. And so looking after the body, keeping the body in good shape is an important aspect of this ascension. But these lights, these codes have been coming through to enable us to see what sits as toxins, as programs, as patterns, as things that have held us in the lower, as things that we've needed to bring up for healing. And we've gone through this process of this purification. And that's what the sun has been doing in our cells, in our body. So we've been going through this, receiving them, activating. This brings up things for us to look at that come from our past, that sit in our family genealogy as well, because many of us have come to do healings back through our family lines. And that's all come up for purification, for healing, for recognition, and for releasing and attending to patterns, habits, programs, conditions that hold us in the lower. So we've been in this ongoing cycling up of that. And then at the same time, we're being activated. So we're coming back to the higher. So within our own bodies, we're having our cells activated. This is this crystallining process that we're going through, this alignment, this embodiment, this receiving and bringing in who we are back through time, space, and dimension, bringing it into the physical, bringing it into the cellular, working through it, and then bringing it into the spinal fluid to activate the memories. And then that helps us to activate our gifts. And then, this is us returning to these incredible beings who could really manifest right in front of us, and who can do all of those things that we used to think were pie in the sky.
Fairy tales.
Yeah, fairy tales. It's like the fairy tales are quite full of truth. So being able to levitate, being able to, move things, being able to speak through the mental mind, telepathy, this incredible level of empathy, being able to communicate through our higher ways of being with nature, with animals. And so all of this, these are our kind of skills and attributes that have been coming online at the same time. So we are this, and what we are going through, the earth is going through. This is the micro macro experience. So the releasing of the things from, deep from within the earth. And so this is the earthquake experience. This is what's been happening. And certainly, for example, the big earthquake in Syria, when I asked about that, I was shown and told that that was the release of the dark, the deep from the Babylonian times, and that had to be released from the earth itself. A lot of the Hawke's Bay floods, when I asked about that, I was told that I was shown a portal from the inner earth to the Hawke's Bay region, and Gaia said that this was a clearing, that in that area that children were taken to that portal took children from there, that there had been some healing done on that, so that it was now not physically taking children from the area, but was still like siphoning off the energy of children. and that was why the flooding happened there. So you know, if you live there and have people you know who live there, and I do, it's a hard thing to register. But apparently I saw something that indicated that that area does have quite a high level of missing children on its fact sheets in the data. So some of these things are because we are releasing from the ancient, and this is, you know, the earth, we're becoming less solid in our being, we're becoming more light, even though we're not going to be, I don't believe yet anyway, you know, we're not going to turn into light, but we're becoming more light. And so this is the crystalline experience. And so this is earth as well. So the density that's held in the rocks, in the bedrock, in the internal of the earth, and, you know, thinking that those crystalline and the oil, you know, the oil is our blood, the waters are our fluids. We, you know, we're the micro and the macro of the planet. So all of this release of those memories, really, those dark times, the earth is having to release those. So we are, and I've been told this for quite a while, but today and yesterday some more information came through, is that, you know, in this phase where we will have a lot of earthquakes. The tectonic plates are doing their movement, and this is because we're through expansion. So in that expansion, it's releasing, and so this is the earthquakes. And really what Gaia has said to me is that we will have a lot of small earthquakes. She has said, so I actually was surprised, because whatever the earthquake was a couple of weeks ago was bigger than I thought we would see. So maybe I haven't got that right, but she has always said we will have a lot of small earthquakes. This, you know, like the shuddering, the movement effect for expansion through the tectonic plates, because the planet is like us, we're becoming more expanded. So we might be a bit taller. To me, the earth shows up as being kind of becoming broader. We are going to shift back through the galaxy. That can sound like fantasy, but I was shown that a long time ago. I was shown how that threaded into the Aboriginal, the Uluru prophecy. I was shown this blob is the best way to describe it. So I was shown in the cave when I first started visiting and speaking with Gaia. I would visit the cave here every day, and then I said to her one day, what is that in the cave? And to me, I called it the Sputnik. So it looked like a sphere made of metal portals. And she said, I can't tell you that. I can't tell you what that is yet. And so I, you know, every now and again I would sort of tune into it, and it got bigger, and then I would see the little tools started to move, and then I would see that they started to kind of move out from the main body of the sphere, and then I would see that there was orange light coming from it, and then it would start to levitate, and I'd see it whirring, and this was over, I don't know, a period of a year or so, and then it moved and it birthed something that really looked like an egg yolk. It really had that appearance. And when I asked what that was, I was told that that was like the replacement sun. And so then I saw that. It's pretty incredible, really. So then I saw that being moved up and down what you could call like a shaft, I suppose. So it was moved up and down, and as it was moving up and down this shaft from the inner earth to the closer to the surface, it was being formed. So it was becoming more spherical, more symmetrical, and more full. So I guess the equivalent of moving being this floppy piece of, you know, egg yolk to having a spherical aspect. And then I was told that at the right time, that would be catapulted off the earth to become the replacement for the sun. So what I know is that, you know, much to my amusement, really, as I'm always I am really naive about all of this. I'm quite surprised what I get shown, to be honest. So, you know, then I discover that whole Uluru prophecy, and that, you know, there's this whole thing about the sun and the central sun, the galactic sun, and all the rest of it, and that, you know, there's this theory about the sun being replaced. And that is what I believe we're close to. I've definitely, maybe you have as well, but I've definitely had a few days where I'm like, well, there's two suns. I can see two suns in the sky. And I've been shown that one will overlay the other and merge, and that the sun in many ways is our nourishment. And so it's like we have been receiving the nourishment from the sun as it's gone from orange to yellow to white, and then the next layer comes in for our higher up levelment. So forgive me if this doesn't all kind of thread in and match up for you, but it doesn't in my head either. So all I can do is sort of speak to what comes. But yeah, there's prophecy about that. So that was in the early time. So I was shown that when that was released from the sun, it would have from the earth, that it would have an impact on our planet that would, and I was shown it like a bunt. So if you've ever played baseball or softball, that bunt is when you hold the bat at both ends and you just slightly hit the ball as it comes and you knock it into the ground. I was shown it was that kind of effect that would be had on the planet, and we would be like nudged further into the photonic belt, further into the galaxy, and at that point that we would return to what Gaia has called our rightful place in the galaxy as the crowned jewel, and as the intergalactic destination and the living library of the universe. And so I think that is such a beautiful story, and that, you know, that's kind of, we're on the edges of that. So in the bigger picture, we're on the edges of that. And then we're in this, so it's the challenge, isn't it? Because, you know, once upon a time, there was a little story about we would be doing this, but now we've got that happening, and we've got all, and, you know, we're in the truth, revealing of the truth as well, which is another whole story. But, you know, that's the kind of bigger picture of where we're going as the Earth. We're returning to original position in the galaxy, further into the photonic belt. So the photonic aspect of the galaxy, that this holds codes for us as well. So we've had codes coming in through that. We've had codes coming from the sun. We've had codes that have come into various components of the planet. We've had codes coming in through our crown, through our field, through our skin, through our eyes, and that's, you know, all this moving story of us becoming what I have been calling human 2.0. So we're going to be, you know, more adept. We're going to have more skills. We're probably going to get a little bit taller. We're going to have, our Merkaba will be reinstated and be spinning correctly. So we've moved through things like the north-south axis has been off. So we've had that realigned. There's the idea of the north-south magnetics needing to be flipped. I know some people are talking about that coming, and that might be right. It's my understanding that we've already done that, but maybe we haven't done it completely. But there's that aspect as well. But what I do know is that we're held through this, and that the dark has been not eliminated entirely, but maybe 2 weeks ago, Gaia said that 60% of the dark had gone. We had reached the tipping point of the light. We would not be returning back, like there was nothing that was going to take us back any longer. I believe that we've been dealing with a lot of clones, a lot of replication, a lot of actors, that a lot of these beings who, you know, many of us would see as having been strongly working with the dark, for the dark, infiltrating us as a species. I believe that many of them have already gone, and that we are being shown what can probably be called a movie that was perhaps made a couple of years ago. And so we might be aware of this, but the interesting thing is that there are a whole lot of people who aren't. There are a whole lot of people who've got not a clue, and they will be shown. And so this is part of the process. And this is the challenge for us, is to not be the know-all, to not be the, oh, I told you so, and to just really sit with compassion, because there's so many aspects of the story of ascension. And I believe that souls made choices and decisions based on the role that they would play. So there'll be some souls that will be choosing to exit now. So we could say that the whole COVID narrative fits into this. That doesn't feel very comfortable, but it could well be so. That I was shown before the whole COVID thing, I was shown that when we came to this kind of final bit of ascension, that a lot of people would leave because they'd done what they came to do. They'd come to the planet to hold the density, or they'd come to the planet to hold the light, or they'd come to the planet to resolve their familial patterns, and that, their role would have completed when we get to this point, and they would leave, and in their leaving they would be taking density with them, which allowed us to have that impact on ascension. And so that's interesting. And the stats that Gaia has always said to me is that 70% will ascend, and so we can expect that 30% will perhaps leave. And what that 30% entails, I don't know. But we know that we have people who are, what do you call them? The stage actors, what are they called? The non-soul people, or I don't know. I never remember.
NPCs.
Yes, the NPC. So, who knows how many of those there are. But it's interesting, isn't it, that we're in that, and we're so strongly seeing the evidence of this occurring in our physical world now, where the lies are being shown, where the stories that have been hidden are being placed in front of us. And I don't have television, and I don't listen to the radio, so my news is my mum. And honestly, on a personal level, I said to my mum a couple of weeks ago, I don't know how you've done this. I do not know how in your life you've had all of this knowledge and you still watch the news and you still don't necessarily believe it, even though you kind of preach about the news. As soon as anyone says, yeah, but do you think that would be true? She'll say, oh, no, it's not true. And so, who knows how many people are around like my mum, but she's my news bulletin a lot of the time, apart from what comes through on Telegram channels. And I'm often horrified at the garbage that gets shown on the television. But we're at the time, and this was always very significant to me, where Gaia showed me that we would move to a time where the molecular structure of a lie would not be able to hold its form. So it would fall apart. And I was like, well, that's really interesting. I wonder how that's going to show up. But actually, it kind of is starting to show up. It's the frequency, right? We're moving into this higher frequency, this higher resonance, this higher vibration. And so we're in this time where the inauthentic, the fake, all of that can't hold together. And so this is all part of the, us being shown. And I know that, some of you probably talk to God, and I often have conversations with Father God, and Father God showed me once that there would be some very fine and subtle decisions made about how much or how little was revealed, because the cognitive dissonance would be so strong for people that they would suicide because of what they might receive. And, you know, I was showing how we would have this time where basically many people would be like wrapped in this beautiful woolen blanket and held through this time, because it will be so hard for them to receive that they have been lied to all their lives and didn't see it, didn't know it, didn't notice it. And that they went along with the narrative, that they went along with the stories, and that now they have to face the consequences of that. So there's that aspect of it, and that segues into this idea as well that I think Father God spoke to me about last year or the year before, that maybe we'll have a dimensional shift before people are shown, so they're in a higher frequency, so they're not so affected by what's gone on in the past. Yes,
Yes, you are just one fascinating woman, I've got to say. We have covered
welcome
so
to my
many,
life.
I should say, you have covered so many topics. It's just been incredible. Your wisdom and your understanding blows me away, and it feels so authentic, as I'm
Well,
sure it
it is
does.
authentic,
I
you know.
understand that. That's why I want
Yeah.
to say it, you know. Yes, I totally agree. And it's beautiful. And there are so many truths that we could have gone off on so many avenues with just what you've said.
It's the challenge of this time, Jude,
Yes,
isn't it? You know,
yes,
we've got this, well, it's likely the whole galactic, I don't know what to call it, but the galactic fleet, the whole spaceship, I mean, if you think about the idea that people on Earth have lived here believing that they might be the only species in the universe. There are people who still believe that.
there are.
So, you know, you think about that, the level of confrontation for people to be, you know, in the presence of somebody who has blue skin or has pointy ears or, you know, looks a bit like a praying mantis. Um, all of that's very confrontational. And so this is, you know, one aspect of where we fit. And
And yet
then,
it's, sorry,
no, go on.
it's also an understanding of these things being very real and these beings appearing to certain people,
Yeah.
maybe giving them comfort that they're not going crazy, they're not going round the bend, because these are realities in
Mm,
their own right that these people are experiencing.
yes, and we have millions. So I think maybe 7 years ago, Gaia said that to me, and I don't have much of an experience with spaceships. So I've seen and spoken to a mantis queen. I've, in my tiny mind, have left the planet and gone to a few planets. Um, I have been on a spaceship. I visited a spaceship with a friend once who she was doing some exploration of her past, and so I went with her to a spaceship, and I was saying to her what I could see. Um, I've met a mantis queen she has come to the center of the earth. She was in Gaia's cave one day, and I hadn't seen those before. But you know, when I'm in that space, I'm not scared. So I said, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And she said, "Gaia is tired, and I've come to hold space while she rests." Um, yeah, so some pretty remarkable conversations. I saw the dwarfs under Mount Shasta. They appeared to me. So I recently spoke about that. But when I tuned into them, it was pretty funny. And I tuned into them and said, "What are you doing?" And they said they were, and so they showed me what they were doing. I could see they were digging in the clay, and they were digging out these little beads that looked like a feminine quartz crystal, like a flat disc about maybe 15 millimeters in diameter. And I said, "What are you doing?" And they were placing them into the clay, and they said, "We are restoring the DNA of humanity, and it's been, you know, disseminated, and we are digging it out from under Mount Shasta, and we are reordering it. So we're putting it into the clay while we figure out the correct order and sequencing. So, I mean, you and I know that that's not real, but that's what I was showing, and it's a pretty damn good analogy. So that's, I was there in 2018, I think. So yeah, I've seen a lot of beings. I've seen the unicorns, I've seen the Pegasus, I've seen the dragons, I've seen the Taniwha, and I've seen the fairies, and I've seen the devas and the crystals, and I don't know how, but I can seem to do that quite easily. But these are all of the things that are really our, I want to say, our natural way of being, and we're returning to it. These skills, these gifts, these qualities, you know, they're ours as of right. They've been interfered with. Our way of being has been intervened. We've been being in a place where we've been enslaved, really. And now we're returning to crystalline, we're returning to our freedom, we're returning to unity consciousness, we're returning to where we're going to be working really in this very symbiotic way with nature, with one another, to restore this place to paradise. This is what the planet is meant to be, the Edenic planet.
How beautifully put. Do you think that when we move further through in our dimensional awakening, that also the devas, Manus, Taniwhas, dragons will shift up as well, or will we merge? How is that all going to work?
I think as we move, I guess we could see as we move into a higher dimensional space, they will. And I'm not sure of the nuances, but you could see maybe it's like a piano octave, that maybe the fifth dimension is fifth dimension level 1, 2, 3, you know, like that, and that they are fourth dimensional, and that they will, you know, maybe move up as part of their ascension. But we will definitely, I've been shown that they feel safe now. They feel safe enough to be seen. And so more of us will begin to see them, have interaction with them. And certainly, you know, these, our new children, that, you know, look out. I keep seeing 5-year-olds at the front of the university lecture theatre with their mortarboards and pointer sticks. They have come to, they've come to teach us so many things, and they're incredible. And many of you will probably have children like that, or have grandchildren like that. And I've had the most amazing conversations with kids in my clinic, and, you know, they're so full of wisdom, and they give their parents sage advice. And, you know, they are out there, they're playing with the elementals, they see them, they know them, they hear them, they speak to them. And so we'll learn how to do that better. But yeah, I think that that's a part of it. And I think the challenge for me is that I get lost in the thread, so do feel free to pull me back in. But this is my experience. We've got so much going on at the moment.
I love your threads, and where you've taken us on such a journey with so many pearls of wisdom. Oh my goodness, it's just been amazing, Sharron. It's so lovely to connect with you again.
Well, it's lovely to be here. Yeah.
Thank you. We realise that we're becoming more centred within our deep truths. We're becoming more solid in our inner knowing. However,
Which is an interesting oxymoron, isn't it, Jude?
Just rather. However the external world presents itself, through the deeper alignment happening within us now, the external will not affect us in the same way as it did in the past. We are growing. This is our barometer of change. And in a way, this is really what we've been talking about, isn't it?
Yes.
We are an undeniable part of Gaia. we are one. Would you please tell us about Gaia's connection and involvement in our mutual ascension process? I'd be very grateful to hear what she thinks about the kinetic, spiritual unfolding of our togetherness within this process, if that's appropriate to ask.
Well, you can ask it. I don't know how well I can answer it. But the word, you know, this enlivening, for example, that word that she has used recently is this idea that everything is, you know, how we're told that that nothing is solid, you know, and it's hard for us to conceive that, isn't it? That a piece of timber, that the molecules are moving in it, but we're in the realization of that to a greater extent. We'll be able to perceive that and see that. And so this is what she's calling our symbiotic arrangement. So we are, I think one of the other aspects that is powerful and incredible is that we will also, so the planet is going to be like restored. So I'm showing, for example, that Africa becomes verdant. I'm showing that some of the animals in Africa, they like regain some of their territory. I'm showing that the predatory nature of the way in which we are as humans and the levels of the hierarchy of animals will not be present in our future, but I don't know when. But I am showing that we will not be predatory. So we will, you know, we will be in that harmonious knowing that we breathe out and the trees breathe in, the trees breathe out and we breathe in. That this balance of nature and us, the water, the air, the trees, the ground, the biome, that this is our responsibility to keep that in balance, and that we are, well, we are shifting from being mind-based to being heart-based. We're shifting from being an individual to being more collective. We're shifting from being the good of me to the highest good, from my highest good to our collective highest good. That includes the smallest microbiological aspect of the cell, right through to the grandmother trees. That we will be in this unified, harmonious, symbiotic action with one another. That we will move to being more community based, with that we will have technologies. Well, we already have them, but they will be released. So we have technologies that are available that can do all sorts of things that will be released in the timing that works for everybody, so that they don't get stolen and, you know, used for evil. And this is where we're moving to, this kind of symbiotic, harmonious way, this unified way of being in ourselves and in ourselves and in union and symbiotic arrangement with nature and with the planet. So the micro and the macro really coming into its fullness.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. We know that some light holders are transmuting the energetic shadows and darkness through their physical, mental, and emotional bodies on behalf of the collective. Could you talk a little about this, please, and how best to move through with more ease and grace, as this is a tough call for many?
Yes, it is. And I think that there would have been a time, well, it's only recently actually that I was told that we were doing this, because I don't believe that we were doing it in the past. I believe that this is like a recent call to action. And in many ways, there's a couple of things that have been happening. So one of the things that has happened is that the shadow, sometime in March, I think, the shadow of was released, or about a third. That's what Gaia said. About a third of the shadow of the earth was being released. And so light workers really felt that. A lot of light workers were like, what the heck is going on? That I feel yuck, you know, I feel like get your ugly on. That was my experience. I'm like, ah, what the heck is this? And then when I spoke to Gaia, she said, yes, that, you know, about a third of the shadow had been released. And so people who were sensitive were feeling it move up through their fields, and then it was affecting. So that's one thing that has happened recently. And as a general rule of thumb, I've always believed that whatever it is that we are attending to, even if it's on a collective level, it has an impact to our own history. So it might be family history, it might be cellular memory, it might be from, you know, the deep dark past. But what she has said recently is it's like the rules changed. So it's like, let's get this party started, basically. Let's get this on the road and let's shift it to another level. And so more of us are transmuting, like it's like both ends, really. So it's the idea that the thing that came up for me the other day was my critical voice. And I'm like, and I'm thinking, oh, that's old. I thought I'd already dealt with that. And then, and, you know, that comes from, you know, having this perfectionist aspect. And that perfectionist aspect comes from not feeling seen or valued or whatever. So, you know, all of our stepping back into those, that healing, and, you know, we carry those things from our family patterns and back through our family history as well. But it's like, so let's say that I've cleared that now. It might be that no one else has to clear that bit. It might be that I did that as the micro and the macro, and that so I might have done that little tiny bit of clearing on behalf of everybody, and each of you may have done a little tiny bit of clearing on behalf of everybody. And then it's the same with the gifts. So maybe I brought in the codes for a particular gift, a particular perspective, a particular way of operating, and that means that it's now available in the collective for everyone to access. So to me, that's a shift. That isn't how the game was played before, but to me, that's a showing up from what she has said as a shift. And so in a way, it's like, let's get the planet moving, let's have ascension taking place. There's been so many interferences. So I think that there was in 2018, I think, you know, and again, don't quote me because I'm crap at remembering time, but I was saying we are going to have an ascension experience and it's going to happen. And it was in April actually of 2018. I don't remember the date. And then it didn't happen. And I was saying to people, yeah, this is definite. I didn't make this up. This is definite. This is going to happen. I've been told it's going to happen. And then a girl in the universe, so somebody on my channel said a girl in the universe has said the same thing. And she said the same date as well, but it didn't happen. And so I went back and I said to Guy, talk to me about what's happened here then. And what she said was that as the planet expanded, as it came into higher frequency, it was revealed, and I was shown it. It looked, well, it was about the size of a pen. It looked like a thermometer, and it was a device. It was a detonation device, and it was coded to start to emit a frequency as soon as the Earth hit a higher frequency. And so that was going to blow the Earth apart. And that's what she showed me, that's what she told me. And so it was, you know, as we're expanding, ready for this ascension, which is what we were supposed to be in, and it was going to be this massive event for all of us, that came online, and it was registered by, I think, by a galactic team. And so we sort of, if you like, we were doing this, and we quickly went shh, and lowered our frequency so that could be attended to. And so this, now it's like we started to play the game differently. So we were playing the game as this incremental aspect of releasing a bit and bringing a bit in. And so that's why I think this idea of you doing a little bit on behalf of everybody and you doing a little bit on behalf of everybody has come in, because it's harder to interfere with.
Do you think there could still be an intervention from the galactics if needed? We hear about the space arcs in various places on the Earth, in the Earth, that could come to assistance if needed. Do you know anything about those?
Well, what I believe is that in terms of nuclear, for example, that's what Gaia told me a long time ago, that it would never be allowed. Would never be allowed, because it's not even to do with us. It's to do with the rippling impact that a nuclear event of a, you know, big
Explosion?
a big explosion or a big event on the Earth would
Yeah.
have through the galaxy, through the universe,
Yes.
through
Yes.
to the multiverse.
Yes.
And so it would never be allowed. So I do know that part. There's a lot. I mean, if you like, we are interesting as a series of species. We're interesting as a scientific biological experiment because we're so diverse. And because we have been, you know, totally disconnected from source. And hello, we're back. So, you know, that's been pretty incredible in itself. Because of this place that we hold, I think that we're kind of on the trajectory of things happening in the way that they were certain. No, the outcome will be in the way it was supposed to, but we're in this process where, you know, it's just this sort of spiraling series of smaller events. Does that answer your question?
That's good, because that's a more gentle approach, isn't it?
Yes.
Which is lovely and more acceptable to a lot of people, because we're all at different stages of understanding and frequency.
Yeah. So it's likely. So I've been shown the thing that I was shown. This wave, I was shown that this wave comes through, and that when this wave comes through, that everybody basically gets put to sleep. So if you're like me, I have those experiences. Anyway, when we have these big waves of energy that have been coming in off the sun, I often have that experience where it's almost like I'm put to sleep for a few seconds. I'm like, oh, and then come to, it's like it comes through me like that. But I was shown that everybody will be put to sleep and upgraded, that when we have this ascension, that will be our experience. And that it's kind of hard for us to conceive, I suppose, that there are, you know, there are so many beings that are interested in us. For a start, you know, we're a very unique little experiment. And so a lot of the, well, one of the things that Gaia showed me early was that there was a lot of interest in us because it was unbelievable what we'd done. No one really believed that we were going to be able to do this, that we were going to be able to pull ourselves back from being disconnected from source and return to this higher dimensional space. And so there's, you know, it's never been done. This part has never been done. Ascension has always been exiting the soul from the physical body and then coming back in a new form. But we are doing it by taking our physical form with us. And this has never been done in the history of the multiverse, is what I've been told. And so, you know, everyone's keeping an eye out for that because it's never been done before.
exactly. So you say you think we'll be put to sleep.
Mhm.
Do we wake up obviously with our still physical bodies the same, or will we
Mm.
be taller? Will we be in a
Oh,
family of people, of like parents that will guide us as we being like the children of this new dimensional realm? How do you think that's going to play out?
well, I think that we will be put to sleep and it will be in a quantum time. And so who knows how long that will be, but it will be maybe different. Maybe what you need is only, a microsecond, and I might need 3 weeks, and someone else might need a day. And, so I think that will all happen in quantum, and that everyone will be attended to. I don't know how much, like if you think about what we know is available that we don't have available to us yet. This idea of being able to be totally healed, this idea of being able to be eternal, this idea of being able to be used and healthy and radiant and all-knowing, all of those are available to us. Now, when and how, I don't know, but I do know that, that's in the not too distant future. Um, so I don't know to what level we will be up leveled when we have this ascension. But I suspect that I kind of know that what it means is that we'll be all knowing. We'll be able to access higher consciousness. We'll be able to, I always kind of see it as like accessing um, like this a strata that holds all knowledge, that will be directly tapped into that level of consciousness. And we'll be upgraded in that way. I don't know. I suspect that there'll be healing that takes place. It doesn't mean that someone who's an amputee will wake up and have a new leg, but I do believe they will be able to get a new leg. And but I think what will happen initially is it will be like the word that Gaia uses, which I just love, is the rememberings.
Yeah.
It holds such a beauty to me, that word. I almost want to cry sometimes when I say it. We're coming to the rememberings of who we are. And so to me, that's likely to be a part of what happens. I suspect that everyone will be like, guides will come and take care of people so that people don't, that if you're driving your car on the motorway, well, there'll be someone who guides you off to the side of the road or whatever. So I don't know the ins and outs of all of that, but that's the kind of idea. I have been shown that we will hear celestial notes. So like the angelic trumpets, for example, it might be like that. I believe that we will hear it both internally and externally. That will be the, ta-da, ta-da, everybody, look out, here it comes. So, I think we're quite close to that. I'm just, even when I was first told this, it was still hard to get a grip on, hard to grasp when it would happen or how it would happen. But I feel it's all here, it's all happening now. And what I didn't understand was as though it would come down the dimensional highway, that it would occur in the ninth dimension, and then it would drop into the eighth, the seventh, and down, and now we're it's coming into the physical. But yeah, that's us in human form ascending with our bodies, which has never been done in the history of the multiverse. And that's why there's so much interest. And then we'll be into returning, restoring the way in which we operate with one another. And then we'll be in because we're going to be this intergalactic destination. So we will have beings from around the universe coming to Earth. And then the aspect of the evil and the dark is not really in my domain. And I believe that we hold a space above it and it doesn't touch us. And that's where we really need to be focused. Now we can say, yes, it exists, but I'm up here. I'm looking at it from this perspective. I'm holding the higher.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Is there any other topic you want to cover? And then do you have time for a few questions before we say goodnight? How are you going for time?
I probably need to close shortly.
I understood you didn't want to be on forever, as much as we'd love to listen to you.
No, and look, you know, I get energized by doing this, but it's just that then it hits me later.
Sure.
I think that it's really about how we hold one another through this that's important. So like being hydrated now is really important. You might notice that your lymphatics are a bit sluggish because they're going through this massive detox. Being present with what is, and being in that now moment, trying to be in a place of joy, trying to be in a place of not getting ahead too far, of just being here with what is, this is unfolding. Be in compassion and recognition that the people around you may not have the knowing, the knowledge, the wherewithal about what's going on, and some of them will be scared. And so be in that, you know, soft, compassionate holding space for them. And I want to say, answer their questions, but don't be their teacher. Gaia always says, be their study buddy, you know, so let them ask you the questions and then answer it rather than you being the person who tells them. And know that they, you know, that we will be faced with, and we may also be faced with cognitive dissonance because it's massive, but it'll be, I feel it will be incremental, it will unfold. And to, yeah, that our children, you know, they are a font of knowledge and wisdom and experience, and they really have a lot of things to offer us, I feel. So just good to remember that, and that we're moving into this collaborative, cooperative, symbiotic arrangement. We're going to be working more in communities where we each have something to offer that's acknowledged, and that the whole hierarchy of that knowledge being more important than that knowledge, that's going to go out the window. That we'll find that there are things that we didn't ever know that come to our fore, and that we're in this return to our geniusness, we're into this return of our gifts and talents, and that is going to include miracles. And I believe that the children, the babies and the toddlers that are here now, I believe that they hold those codes for miracles.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for all of your beautiful pearls of wisdom. Are you happy to take a couple of questions, or would you like to stop here?
Oh, I can take a couple of questions and then
Okay.
if that's okay.
So if anyone does have a fairly short question, if we can keep it fairly short, please, for our beautiful Sharron, that would be lovely. Lou, how are you?
Hi, Jude and Sharron. Thank you very much. I'm doing fine. Great to be here. And I have a zillion questions, but I will not place any at the moment because it makes no sense. But instead, I rather say thank you, Sharron, because I always enjoy this. This is like, it's more than a conversation. It's a reaffirmation of many, many different things. And I would like to sort of confirm that what you said about the losing this predator nature that we all have, and that will not exist in the future. You don't know when, neither do I. But I can sort of confirm that, because in my visions, that doesn't exist. I find myself involved, surrounded by all sort of animals, mostly predator animals, lions and tigers and all sorts, all mixed up with birds and whales and dolphins, all sitting around me.
Yes.
Like little pets. So it's beautiful to hear what you just said regarding this nature that we all have in this 3D world. So thank you very much. It's great. And please come back again.
Thank you, Lou.
Thank you, Lou.
I once had this vision or this meditation experience where I was sitting by the lake, or by a lake, not a lake I knew, and beside me there was a mouse, and beside the mouse was a lion, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then this woman appeared out of the lake, and she declared that she was the lady of the lake. And so I can't remember the conversation that we had, but I knew that part of that whole thing was to show me that in the future, you know, we would each be able to sit side by side in the same space and there not be fear.
That's beautiful. Does anyone else have a question before we close for the evening? Hi, Andy.
G'day, and thank you, Sharron, for a wonderful presentation. Just the one question. You mentioned the energetic shift of magnetics, the poles. What impact is that going to have on the Earth and also us as individual souls?
That's a really good question. I mean, we are the micro and the macro of that, aren't we? So how it shows up to me, but and I might be wrong, but I feel that we've already done it. Although I know that there are people who are talking about this happening. But if you like, how I see it is the center of the toroidal field, so the north-south axis, that if it hasn't already, it flips. So it's not that I don't think that means that the planet flips upside down. I just think the polarity shifts. And I don't know what that means. You might know what that means from a scientific point of view, the magnetic north. I don't know how real that is. I mean, we know that the whatever the satellite is, that is the beacon or the honing device, the GPS, gets mucked around and rearranged. And doesn't that relate to magnetic north? But so I believe that the Earth, so irrespective of whether the Earth is flat, a disk, a series of disks, or a sphere, that there's a toroidal field, and that toroidal field holds the outer space, if you like, of the Earth, and that toroidal field runs down the center, the north-south axis, and the same for us through the soul star down to the crystalline earth star. And that that I got shown maybe the very first time I went into Gaia's cave, I got shown this. Was quite extraordinary. This black granite floor with a compass laid in gold, and I could see that it was like there were discs that moved, and I could see that it wasn't accurate. And I said to her, why are you showing me this? And she said, because we're 3 degrees off. That needs to be realigned. So it was 3 degrees like to the right of the north. And so she has shown me over the years that we've had this incremental pullback to being directly north. But yeah, so I don't know. I actually thought about this yesterday. I should ask her, but I don't know what will happen to if magnetic north suddenly goes to the flip. Do you? No. But we just don't know how much rubbish we've been told either. And that's what I remember. I remember my dad when I was out in the boat with him one day, and we were talking about the GPS, and he said, yeah, well, you know, and he was a volunteer fireman, and so, you know, he had some, I guess he had some other kind of knowledge that came in. He was a builder by trade, and he said, yeah, well, it's never quite correct, the GPS. You know, it's always slightly off, and that, you know, that's for military reasons, or, you know, something like that. So it makes no sense to me why that would be arranged like that. But yeah, I don't know what will happen when it's in its correct position, but it is my kind of understanding that it already is. And I know when I went to Lake Rotoiti last year, and I got cast into the bed for like 3 days of my 4-day holiday, that was all about that as well. It was about the realignment of the north-south axis.
Fascinating stuff. Oh my God. There's just so many avenues of reality and new reality coming upon us more
Yes.
and more and more, and what we are
And what we
learning,
don't know. We know a lot,
relearning,
but
and
there's a
what we
lot we
have
don't know.
and what we have yet to learn.
Yes, yes. And, you know, the creatures, the beings who are not human, and what they will be able to teach us is I imagine, that's phenomenal and infinite.
It's very,
And the fact that that when we have access to other planetary systems that are operating in higher dimensional spaces and frequencies, that, you know, that will bring us new knowledge and technologies and ways of operating. So I mean, we will be able to, I believe we will be able to teleport, that we will, you know, there will be, I don't know, I've seen a few things, but it's like we'll have different ways of moving around the planet, and, you know, go on holiday with your little disc.
very, very exciting. Sharron, I want to thank you so much for coming on. It's been such a pleasure to see you again and hear all of your wisdoms and understandings. You're a breath of fresh air. I just love you to bits.
Oh, thank you.
Can you please tell us what you offer and where people can find you?
Yes, I live in Manly in Whangaparoa. I offer sessions in person or by Zoom. I have a YouTube channel, I have a Facebook page, and I have a website, which I'm kind of in the midst of upgrading. And I have a newsletter that you can subscribe to that I send out between 6 and 12 times a year, depending on how onto it I am. And yeah, that's free. So yeah, those are the kinds of things that I do. I access soul records and the Akash, and I believe that many of you will be able to do that very soon. I believe that I'll be redundant soon. I'm sure I won't be redundant entirely, but you know, we will all have a lot of the skills that I have. Everybody will have, and I believe that us, that you, that me, that I really want to say that our main role right now is a few things. One is to take really good care of yourself. We're going through massive stuff. Be really gentle on yourself. Be super hydrated. Sleep if you can. Lee and I were talking about that before. Sleep is like, not so good some days or some nights, or, you know, you sleep well and then you're awake. But, you know, this is our bodies. We're changing. We're accommodating, assimilating. And so we need to be well hydrated. We need to be well nutriented. We need to be aware of all the intrusions that are in our food. And we need to do the best that we can to eat fresh and organic. We need to be planting our gardens so that we've got access to that. And we need to learn to look for the good. So we sit in that space of, being in that joyful experience of what is, and nature is a great way it's a great teacher, isn't it, to be amongst the trees or with your feet in the ocean or on the beach. And that this is, our new, I want to say, practices, and that this is all going to unfold. It's going to unfold quite quickly. It's discombobulating at the moment. We spend a lot of time in what I would call the liminal space, the space between, because it's new. So it's a whole new experience, this higher frequency. But it's like anything. It's like when you first start swimming, being in the pool's not very comfortable, or being in the ocean, it's scary. But then all of a sudden we develop skills and we become masterful. And so this is us. We are learning to become fifth dimensional beings, having a fifth dimensional experience, and then we'll move into the higher, accessing our gifts, our talents, our DNA being, if you like, reconnected, soothed and smoothed. That's one of the kind of phrases that often comes. And we are moving back to our rightful place as these intergalactic beings on this beautiful planet. Because it definitely, this planet is very special. In comparison to other planets I've been to, this planet is really, it's paradise. And it's going to be interesting, isn't it, when we start to have interaction with beings from other universes and galaxies. But right now we're in, we're in the kind of the last lap, if you like, of the relay, or the last part of the race. And it's, don't be beating yourself up, and be gentle, be easy, take a day off, do what you need to do to look after yourself, and encourage the people around you to do that as well. You don't have to give them all the details, but you can say, well, it would seem we're going through a lot of change, and our bodies might need more rest, and our bodies might need more water, and our bodies might need to be in nature, because nature is such a good friend. It can remove the toxins. It can it can balance our ions. And well, the other aspect that is interesting in that regard is that what Gaia said is that we would have a time where we would be witnessing chemtrails, but the chemtrails would have healing properties. So it would be that. So I watched something today, which was helicopters in, where was it? I'm not sure. In New Zealand though. In a big Tasman National Park maybe. And the person was saying they're spraying, is it DT? What is it?
DDT?
DDT.
Wow.
But maybe they aren't. I don't know. I mean, I don't think we can be that far behind. There were 4 helicopters. Anyway, we're in some turnaround with that. And Gaia always said that it would come a time where we would have chemtrails, but that they would be for healing, for restoration. So maybe someone knows somebody who knows more.
It might have been 1080, which they've been doing a lot, which is not good, because it kills everything.
And it gets in the waterways. So we've
Yes.
definitely, that's been a really big problem in our country.
Yes.
where we have the most beautiful, pristine nature. And it's ridiculous that we have an agency called DOC who poisons animals, and that, in the Coromandel, which is where I come from, and you walk up in there and you can see there the poison pellets, and they are, they're just way off, like they're dropping bait for possums, but they're way off where they ought to be. So these are the things that we will attend to, and we just have to develop vigilance around them. And I guess we just have to try and figure out, is that true or is that not? Because I believe that there are a lot of things that are happening to make people go, hold on a minute, I'm not having that. You know, the whole woke agenda, that bothers me. The whole sexualization, the trans agenda, you know, it's about taking something small and maybe real and genuine and true and expanding it out of kilter. And then playing the game of, well, you can't be discriminatory about those things. So this is, you know, to me, Gaia's always said, just look at it from all the levels, you know, go to the 7th dimension and have a look at what's happening here so that we get a bigger picture view of it. But this is our learning, this undoing, this revealing. We're in massive revealing at the moment, and so we know that the mainstream media tells us lies. We know that we're fed total, well, I think anyway, bollocks about what Russia does, who Putin is, and you know, it might be that we find out that that's what we're told isn't true, and that, you know, we'll get better at checking in. We'll be, you know, registering, does that feel right or not? It's the same with Trump. There's a whole lot of narratives around who he is or who he isn't, and what he does and what he doesn't, and so all of these things are things that will be revealed. We know the royal family is having its demise. That's, you know, and well, some of you are probably English, but if you think about, for me, this stone, if you think about how beloved the royal family is to the English, you know, for the royal family, for the English to find out some of the things that the royal family have been involved in will be very, very destabilizing. And so this is, you know, that's a really good example of cognitive dissonance and how we have to hold one another through this. So I think maybe, I don't know, when did the Queen die? A year ago, 18 months ago? Like in theory.
Yeah, it probably was
Whenever
about a year ago now, in theory.
Yeah, so I got shown maybe 3 years before that the Queen had died. But what struck me was I was sitting in my living room and I had this experience of feeling like someone had just sucked all the energy out of my room. And I'm like, what just happened? And when I asked, I got shown that the Queen had left the planet, and that the Queen had a covenant over the planet that meant that the planet couldn't have any more percentage of light than that while she was here. So when she left, it meant that we could then have more light. And then I discovered that it had been announced that she had died. And of course, I'd forgotten, because 3 years ago she died then. You know, 3 years prior to that. So that, I think that's a really good reminder of, you know, what we're going to be navigating, is that some of these things are very precious, very sensitive issues, and so we have to be mindful and compassionate.
Thank you so much for a wonderful, wonderful Cosmic Cuppa. As always, you just blow my mind, which is wonderful. So thank you so much for coming on. It's just been an absolute pleasure.
Well, it's my pleasure, and it's lovely to see faces that I remember seeing from last time. And yeah, we're just in this, you know, movement really where we're about to be celebratory about where we're moving to. And so that's a good thing.
Absolutely is. We've got so much to look forward to. So
Okay.
thank you everyone for joining us for another amazing Cosmic Cuppa with Jude and Sharron this evening. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like, share and subscribe. And remember, as always, peace on earth. It starts with you. It starts with me. Good night, everyone, and God bless.